Hi, and welcome back. In our previous video, we started to take a look at laying out multiple opening mats, and we saw how you can add all the openings that you need to the mat. Now in this part, we're going to take a look at the alignment tools and find out how to arrange these and get them spaced out precisely and evenly the way you want them to be. Before we get into that, let me just point out a couple of things here. You might see this and it looks a bit different from the openings. It is because it's not actually an opening. This is template number 108. It's the reserved area. And you can add this just like an opening, but it's not going to cut an opening. You can use this to represent things like a brass plate or an object that you might be putting in a shadow box, and you want to be able to space things around it. You may want an inch and a half between this brass plate and this opening for a photograph here, for instance. And this allows you to put something in there that you can work with and arrange things around without actually cutting an opening. It's a really nice handy feature. And also, another thing I wanted to point out is the fact that as I move these things around, you might notice that the outside of the mat is getting larger and smaller. It's moving as I do that. That's because I have this little feature here turned on. This is the dynamic outsides feature. And what this will do, it will automatically recalculate the outside dimension of the mat. It will take the largest distance between any two openings from here to here, and it will add the border all the way around that and give you a dynamic outside. It keeps on changing as I move things around. And I like to have this on when I'm designing a multiple opening because it frees me from any constraints, and it's much easier than trying to space things to fit in a predetermined rigid size. Now you might have to do that if, for instance, you're working with a frame already, maybe a frame that a customer brought you and wants to reuse, or if you just absolutely cannot change the size of the frame for any reason. But for the most part, when you're doing certain things like a multiple opening mat, a shadow box, a canvas, or any kind of needlework, you should always assume that the size is going to change a little bit here and there from what you have on the work order. And unless you really mess up, it's only going to be a difference of maybe half an inch here, an inch smaller there, and it's not going to be enough to really affect your prices or anything like that. So just get into the habit of being sure to remeasure everything and verify your measurements after you've cut your mats, especially when you're doing any of these sort of things. So that's what that's about. Okay, so let's get started in arranging these and getting them spaced out. Let's start with these three small openings here, and I can drag them and get them roughly aligned the way I want them to. As I'm moving this, you see the blue lines pop up that are alignment guides that tell me that I have them centered on each other and aligned on their left and right sides, and that's great. But I need to make sure that this distance is equal to that so that they're all evenly spaced out. So I need to select all three of these, and I can do that by holding down the left mouse key and drawing a box around them. Now they're all selected. When we go to the alignment tab, all of these tools are now active. If nothing was selected, they would be grayed out. So this button right here, align the objects to the center. Now that's aligning the objects to the center of each other. That's already done, but not a bad idea to go ahead and do that just to make sure. Now I want to space these vertically, let's say 1 3/4 inches apart, which is what I already have. So we're good to go there, and simply click space vertical. And you see that they popped in and they're now spaced evenly apart. Let's do the same to these three. and I'm holding down the Shift key while I'm clicking those. And I can space vertically. There we go. Now they're all 1 3/4 inches apart, and let's line them up vertically with each other. There we go. And there are other tools here. You can align them to the left, you can align them to the right, or align them to the center. And these down here are similar, they just do it in a vertical format, aligning to the top or the bottom or the middle of another opening. Okay, so there we go. So that little group right there is all lined up. That group there is all lined up and spaced nicely. Now I want to make sure that I get 1 3/4 inches between this group of openings and this group here. And I could use the space horizontal, but sometimes when you're dealing with a group of openings, it doesn't do quite what you want to. The one object might move when you wanted the other one to move instead. So this is a good place to use an alignment line. And there are 2 ways to get that. One, when I put my cursor over here in the rulers on the edge, you see it turns into that little cross shape. And when I do that, if I click, I can create a red alignment line, and I can place that anywhere I want. And it gives you the measurement over by your cursor as you move that. And that's okay, but it's giving you the measurement on the mat itself, and it's not really quite what we want. It's not as handy as I would like. So I'll just drag that off to the edge to get rid of it. Here's what I'm going to do instead. I'll right click inside this opening, and we have an option for a new vertical guide, left, middle, or right, and a horizontal, top, middle, or bottom, and I want to do something other than that. So I want to add it on the right, and I want that to be 1 3/4 inches from the right. And now you see I have that red line there. And if I just shift and select all 3 of these, I can drag them as a group. They're not going to move on me when I don't want them to, and they'll snap to that red alignment line. That's great. Now there's 1 3/4 inches between these 2 groups. Okay, the last thing I need to do is get this group centered on the mat. And I'll select all 3 of these, and I can use this. This will center the objects vertically on the mat. And there we go. And you'll notice these 3 are green rather than the blue. These 3 will center the object on the mat itself, whereas the blue ones down here will center one object relative to another one. Okay, so that's all the basics there. Anything else? These alignment tools will all do basically everything you need to do as far as getting an object aligned and spaced where you want it precisely. So I would encourage you to spend a little bit of time playing around with these, laying out some mats, testing things out, and see how they work. It gets to be very intuitive and very quick and easy. So that's about all I have for you right now as far as that goes.